Hey guys, this is Roxum087. I have a brand new Tokyo Marui CQBR here, and I just want to make a quick video about the bolt. It's because some people are a little bit confused as to what the nozzle type is supposed to be like, what the valve is supposed to be, is there an O-ring at the back, and I'm just going to answer all of that stuff all in one video. So first off, when you buy the CQBR, in my experience, when I game this in Hong Kong, and the temperature is roughly around 20 to 22 degrees whenever you take it outdoors. In my experience, the joule, when you use 0.3 gram BBs, is roughly around 1.56 joules to 1.4 to 1.56 joules. That appears to be the power that I'm getting at that temperature. When the temperature does drop, the gun will shoot roughly around 1.2 to 1.4 joules, somewhere in there. And the reason why I'm getting a 0.2 joule fluctuation is because when you're playing in Hong Kong, in the morning, the temperature is lower than 20 in general. But in the day, it normally climbs to about 22, 23 degrees. That's the reason why there's a bit of a joule difference. It's because if you let the mag heat up, it will obviously gain a bit of power. Okay, so that's the kind of results that I'm getting here in Hong Kong. Your results may vary depending on which country you live in. But anyways, so this is actually a CQBR that I just bought about 3 weeks ago, for a friend of mine who wants to build a CQBR. If you don't mind, I just want to pack everything neatly. So I am actually going to disassemble everything right here. Now the reason why I need to put the camera here instead of right here is because I need space to work on stuff. So. Chamber's clear. Now, I normally separate the upper receiver. The reason why is because if you accidentally close the upper receiver, this buffer can sometimes shoot out. And I like to close the pins, and I like to drop the hammer, just to preserve the hammer spring, but you don't really need to do that because the hammer spring is already pretty good. In fact, when you're using a Tokyo Marui CQBR, you pretty much never change the hammer spring. Anyways, so this is the bolt right here. Now, I'm going to do my best to zoom in. But, it's not the best video that I've ever made, but hopefully you guys can see some of what's happening. So the bolt's a little greasy right now. Just let me wipe off some of this crap. Okay. So we're going to go through everything bit by bit. I'll start with the rear of the nozzle because that's the first part we're going to see. Okay, so this is the CQBR nozzle. Let me just make sure the camera's in focus. Okay. So right now, it looks like you don't see an O-ring, right? Okay, take the sealing buffer off, and there is no O-ring. Okay, there's no O-ring. There's no O-ring in here. Now, let's check inside the bolt. So it's inside the bolt. Okay, so just now, I took it out. The nozzle has no O-ring on it. It's not stuck in the buffer, it's not stuck in the sealing buffer, but it's inside the bolt. Can you see that? Okay, So why am I making this video for you and why am I doing this for you is because many people are confused as to why this O-ring is here. So let me explain to you. That O-ring is there for a very simple reason. It's to prevent air from escaping at the back. That's it. You need this O-ring. You cannot have the gun function without this O-ring. It will not function properly. Or at least your blowback will be a little bit weaker, and your power will be a little bit weaker. Noticeably weaker, actually. It's because if you actually try to remove it, you can actually see gas escaping from your chamber. Okay, you can try doing that yourself. Gas will escape from your chamber. Okay, so let me pull that O-ring out. And there's the O-ring right there. Okay, so there is in fact a O-ring. It's either, sometimes it doesn't stay on this very well, so sometimes it's inside your bolt. Check this, then check your sealing buffer, and then check inside the bolt for that O-ring if you cannot find it. There has to be an O-ring. Okay? So that's the first part. Now the next part is the rocket valve. In terms of the rocket valve, I already know it's a Gen 2 rocket valve is because you can actually see it just by looking down here, but it's not very clear right now on camera. So it is a Gen 2 rocket valve. Now, some people have told me that and you know what, I'm also aware of this myself. By the way, I own 2 CQB-Rs and 2 MWSs. I know what I'm talking about here, okay? So don't complain about it. In my experience, when I use the Gen 2 valve, I notice that my full auto is not very good with this valve. It appears to not, actually the full auto doesn't seem to work at all, or not work as fast as the Gen 1 valve. So the Gen 2 valve, the way you can tell between a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 is that the Gen 2 has a wing, a little bit of a wing like this. That's the Gen 2. The Gen 1 just looks like a normal rocket valve. If you have ever built a Tokyo Marui pistol or a WE pistol, it sort of looks like that rocket valve. The Gen 1 looks like that rocket valve. For the CQB-R and MWS, for the Gen 2s, they look like this. Some people have mentioned to me that they think the possible cause of the gun not cycling as fast on full auto and on single fire might not be the valve. It might be because of the rocket valve spring. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I actually don't know. It's because on my Generation 1 Tokyo Marui, it was shooting 1.7 to 1.8 joules when I took it outdoors. And then in 2016, in August and July, the temperature in Hong Kong was as hot as it ever was. So what happened was that my MWS, my Gen 1 MWS, that I actually purchased in November 2015, it was shooting 1.9 joules. So because of that, I actually trimmed the rocket valve spring on my Generation 1. So I actually don't know if the rocket valve spring tension has been changed or not. I don't know how to answer that question. I don't think so, but some people have mentioned that this might have been changed. I really don't know what to tell you. I don't know. Whatever the reason is, it seems to be very easy to solve. I'm not going to talk about how to solve that right now, is because this seems to be a very controversial topic, and I just want to see what other people have figured out first before I make any comments. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the nozzle itself. So this is the thing that I've been noticing, that recently I have 2 CQB-Rs like this, and I have my Generation 1 does not have holes. For the Gen 2 nozzle, there appears to be a hole. You see that? Like, that's a big hole. Like, that's a really, really big hole. So I think this is Tokyo Mari's method of downgrading the gun, is because I do realize that the Tokyo Mari Z system in general, even though the inner barrel is quite short, it seems to fire fairly hard. So I think that's the reason why they decided to add this hole to maybe downgrade the power a little bit more. Okay. Now the next thing that people like to tell me is that you can easily just get rid of this nozzle and just buy the UAC nozzle. So here's the problem with that. Actually, you know what? Before I make a comment, I need to just clarify something. Everything that I'm saying here is through experience. It's because there has been at least 50 MWSs that has been through my home. Okay, so I'm making this comment is because I do notice these small changes. So the comment that I'm about to make about the UAC, don't take it too personally or anything like that, okay? So with the UAC nozzle, it appears that the structure at the tippy top of this area, can you see that there's two little wings over here? Right here and right over here. These two wings on the UAC one is not as, it doesn't have as much structure over there. It's not as beefy. So on the UAC nozzle, this area here, that prevents this part from coming out, that part on the UAC will break. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now that the UAC nozzle will break very easily in this area. And when this breaks, what will happen is that your nozzle, it will actually like protrude inside the hop rubber a little bit too deep. And what will happen is that your hop will be inconsistent at times, is because your nozzle is not at the right depth. This is sort of like a limiter to prevent this from going too deep. That's basically more or less what this does. Okay. So in my experience, that's pretty much the only problem that I've experienced with the UAC. Again, don't take it too personally. It's based off experience. And you know what? Hold on a second. So this is my spare parts box for the Tokyo Mari MWS. I have been playing around. So there's also a few things that I have to mention about the UAC nozzle. The UAC nozzle appears to be... Oh, holy crap, I can't remember. One of the nozzles appears to be a little bit shorter than the other. So just give me a second. This is a UAC nozzle. This is a UAC nozzle. So, just give me a moment. So, if I recall correctly, one of these nozzles, I can't remember if it's the UAC one or the Mari one that's a little bit longer. But anyways, let me just first talk about the first point I was talking about. So, can you see that the wing has broken off? It's sheared off, sheared right off. And this is the second one that also sheared off. I also have a third broken nozzle, but I don't know where that nozzle is right now. I think these are my two spare Tokyo Mari nozzles. I can't really remember. But I know these two are my UAC nozzles is because I actually broke them. I remember now, sorry. It takes me a little bit of time to remember these things sometimes. So it appears that the stock Tokyo Mari nozzle is a little bit longer than the UAC nozzle. So if you decide to use the stock sealing buffer with the UAC nozzle, you may find that your hop up may not be consistent. And the reason why is because the way this, it appears that this nozzle, if there's a certain distance away from the BB, it's not applying enough hop sometimes. It's just because the the nozzle tip is not as close to the BB as it should be, so it appears that this actually affects the hop up. Now, if you're using a very lower power setup, like if you use a 60-degree rubber, which generally means that your power is not very high, generally speaking, you won't notice this effect as much. Is because generally speaking, you're just shooting too short distance to notice that. The way you notice this effect is if you shoot at around 30 to 40 meters, you will notice that there's quite a bit of difference. What will happen is that you have some BBs that actually have a little bit more hop than usual. Those are the effects that I experienced. It may not be correct. That's my experience. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about is the sealing buffer. So the sealing buffer height for the UAC ones. Hey, so here's the thing I actually don't know. UAC actually makes these sealing buffers. They started making this in green. They had one in black earlier. I'm wondering why they changed color. I'm not entirely sure if this means anything. I bought this just because I saw it. The package didn't say anything special. I just noticed that it was green. I don't know if this means anything. But if I recall correctly, one of these is taller than the other. Just give me a second. I can't really, I don't remember this. It's because I only discovered this recently myself. You know what? Where's my caliper? You know what? I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera. I remember there's a difference, but I can't remember which one was taller, which one was shorter. I remember there was a very, very tiny measurable difference. But I'm not gonna, you know what? I'm not gonna talk about the second point, is because I can't remember. I haven't noted all of these effects down yet, okay, so don't blame me for that. I'm still trying to figure out all this myself. But for sure, what I can tell you is that the nozzle is in fact shorter. The UAC one is in fact shorter than the original one. And because of that, I'm not entirely sure if it's because they changed the sealing buffer because of that. I don't know. Okay? I'm just telling you that those are the effects. So, anyways, that's it for the video. Not super informative. And I'm not entirely sure if I'm right either. This is just a video that I'm putting out. Okay? So, nobody rage, nobody go crazy. Okay, peace guys, happy shooting, thanks for watching.